the staircase. As you can see, there are a lot of high heel marks in it. Do you want me to leave them in or not? Okay, so those two hand or feet trodden boards have now become plain. You can see that all the marks have gone. We've got a few little plain marks in there that we'll need to get rid of, but good nick, nice wood. All right, let's see if we can't plane this beast at the neck. Okay, so I've just trimmed off the edges, so now you've got a complete neck blank. Lovely piece of timber. Just sanded it back to 180. Need to make sure it's level. Let's just pop that straight line on there. Please excuse the crap that's in the background. Yep, that's cool. So the next thing for me to do with these two boards is decide which ends I want to joint. As you can see, they've got a little bit of a tilt on them right now, so what we need to do is cut these down to a straight line either side, make sure they joint up nice so as when I glue them together and go with my clamps, so then we've got a nice flat surface. They're about the same depth, so when I clamp them and these are square, we should end up with a nice two-piece joint. So the template is here. I know that that's going to fit on width-wise completely. Now obviously this is reclaimed wood, which means that there's been nails and chunks out of it and things like that. I've got mostly a nice flat surface, so I just want to make sure on both sides that if that was the central line, that these chunks get avoided there. Yes, they do. If I flip them over, make sure there's a chunk there, but that side is clean. So there's nothing on that side, chunk on there. Can I make sure if I now put it that side that I can avoid it as well? And the answer is indeed yes. So I think we're good to join up these two corners. So all I'm going to do is mark those up and make sure that we know that that's the side to joint. Okay, here we are at the router table. So what I want to do is I'm using this straight edge, using a flush trim bush that's going to push against this, trim that down so it's nice and flat and square. Now the fact that these are got a bevel on them means that it's going to take some time. Got now is a lovely flush straight line like that. Okay, so that's both of those done. Let's take these off and see where we're up to. So the good thing about the older paper and glue trick is that the masking tape itself leaves virtually no residue, so you can take those off. And what you're left with is a nice clean set of boards. it is the most utilised luthiers trick going. So given me that these are straight off the machine, I have no idea whatsoever if they're going to joint up perfectly or not, because normally you have to hand joint them a little bit. But that to me looks pretty damn good. Get a couple of clamps and just test. Bearing in mind that these boards are a bit bloody wide. Let's have a little look. So just a little tiny bit of pressure on there, because you really don't need a lot with a good joint. That going to hold for me? And that looks pretty bloody spectacular. So happy with those. Now we joint, put a bit of glue on them and clamp them up, and then that'll be me done with this board for the day. Okay, so the next thing for me to do is adjust the camera a little bit. There we go. Whilst the body is jointing, I've got to get this truss rod and make a groove for it down the middle of this. I was just about to unwrap these and I went, ooh, unboxing video. They're very popular. So let's have a look at this delivery of your tops. Okay. Number 1. Number 2. More wrapping. So this one is the plainer of the 2. Looks like he's actually done a lot of planing for me, which is a bonus. There's your Royal Mail parcel tape, which sticks to bloody everything. But they'll get sanded. Look at it. Good job I've got 1,000 bloody Stanley knife blades, isn't it? So number 1 is this relatively plain cut 20mm board, which will look something like that. Remember, it's going to be blue, so that's actually quite nice. And now let's have a look at number 2. This is the one that was supposed to be a bit more flamey. Certainly is a lot more flaming, although I'm beginning to wonder if by the time that is jointed, you can see the flame on there, and if I flip it round, it's even more flamey. My first impressions are that guitar is only just about, no, we've got plenty of room. There's me getting worried. We've got 5mm on either side. Right, the choice is yours, pal. Okay, so what we're going to do now is cut the fret slots. I've got the ebony fretboard here. Attached to that is a 24 3/4 inch scale length jig. I've got my lovely little fine curved circular saw blade in there, attached to my 90-degree jig. Let's cut you some slots. Hang on, put the camera around nice. There we go. Try not to fuck it up. Okay, so fret slots cut, that's my nice straight edge, so I'm going to use that now to form a centre line down the middle, or what will be the centre line of the actual guitar neck itself. So for that, what we need is a measurement. So in order to get the nicest bit of wood, and I think making sure that this little stripe stays in roughly the middle, let's have a little look. So we are 73mm there, so let's call that a good old 35. Marvellous, that's going to give me roughly halfway. So I want a pencil, and we'll measure 35 from there, 35 from the base, and that's going to be my centre line. So this is about the most important mark that you make on a guitar, because if nothing's in the bloody middle, you're in trouble. So now that I've got that organised, that's pretty much me feeling happy that I've got a square line, that I've got everything good. One thing you always want to do, however much I trust the fact that I made that jig and is everything at 90 degrees, just check. You've got to keep checking. So just like I've shown you in previous clips, I know that that's a straight edge. I want to make sure now that every single fret is bob on at 90 degrees, and that we haven't somehow along the lines managed to make them slightly pissed. True to form, we're all good. If those were drunk in any way, then I've just turned it into a very expensive piece of firewood. So now that I know that these are all square to that edge, I know that this edge is the same width there, I'm confident. So the next job for me is to make sure that my neck template fits onto here perfectly, in order that I can now route this shape onto there, and I've got an accurate neck width. So for the Blues Master, what I like to do is keep a relatively slim neck. Relatively slim, but not crazy slim. So this is actually a Fender 25.5-inch scale length, which has some bonuses, because when I move that to the base to make sure that the final fret is on line with this here, i.e. the neck pocket is good, I get an ever so slightly wider than a Fender neck. So like I say, Fender necks for this kind of guitar are not the right thing, but by lucky happenstance, the correct width at the first nut is the same as the nut here, or first fret, sorry, is exactly the same for what I want. So bloody marvellous. So good old luthier's trick again. So what you've seen I've done is make sure that the centre line holes, which are routed into this for your dot marker positions, now obviously those will be different for this, but because I'm using the width of it, it's all good. What you can do is keep the centre line exposed, so you can look through those little dots and make sure that everything is centred accordingly. Now I would normally use the spray, but because there's going to be a level of shifting, I don't want it to instantly set. So what I'm going to do here is make sure that I'm on the centre line by peering through and making sure that that pencil line I've just drawn is smack dab in the middle of my centre line here. So I'm not worried about the neck width, because as I say, the actual nut here is considerably lower than there, so you're getting an extra slight bit of width for a different style of guitar. So making sure that that is in position, I can hold that down, then spray the ends through the hole. And then that should now just slowly set. There we go. So now we're in position. I know that I've got that all marked in lovely. So I've just been measuring it up, and off camera I realised that if I was to do the 21 frets from the previous model, this is an ever so slightly longer truss rod. So in order to make sure that I give you plenty of play at the bottom without making sure that the truss rod pops out through the bloody back of it, which would be an annoyance, I've added you an extra fret. You now have 22. So that's all good. It now comes up to length with a good amount of play at the bottom there to make sure that there's no problems with the truss rod. The nut is just going to sit on there, so that's nice and flat and steady, and I'm dead happy with that. Now what I need to do is make sure that when I glue this together, it doesn't slip, because obviously this is just masking tape and super glue, which is good for adjustments, but not very good for anything else. So the next thing to do is make sure that we've got some little tabs into here that will hide underneath the fret slots and keep the whole thing in place when it glues so it doesn't slip. And in order to do that, you go for some toothpicks. Now, as it turns out, toothpicks are exactly 2 millimeters wide. So with the drill, we make a couple of little holes through at the top here, a couple of them at the bottom, and that way we've got some steady, where's my 2 mil? There we go. That way everything is nice and solid. Because there is nothing worse than it slipping. So I want to make sure first and foremost that I've got enough drill bit but not too much. for the depth of the fretboard and then a teeny little bit more. So because I've already marked everything up, I'm going to go for that fret. There's my mark. One, two, three, and a fourth for good luck. So that is about the best 2p worth of toothpick that you can have, and pretty much make sure everything is going to stay nice and stable. So even if I remove this now, this should be able to just pop straight back in and it's not going to be a problem. And just to prove a point, I can now put these into their respective holes, which is always a bit of a pain in the arse the first time. Come on, you little bugger. There we go. Those go in there. Little toothpick anchors in, and there's no way on earth that that's going to move once I've got some glue on there and some clamps, and it's not going to slide at all. Worth videoing this bit because I've just cut the router and the neck pocket with the router, and just to show you that that is dead straight. That's my favourite thing. Okay, we're routing up the humbucker cavities. As you can see, I've marked them out there. Now that I've cut that neck slot, all of a sudden I can make measurements. So So yesterday, just stay there. Yesterday I made your humbuckers. So these are all wound, they're ready to go, and these are going to drop into here. So let's get some measurements off them. So I do like them to have them completely slammed if you want them, which will give you a 30mm drop. Obviously you don't need to have them completely, but you can if you want. So minus the humbucker ring is about 3mm, so let's call it 26. That'll be a nice number. Leave those in there for a minute. So 26mm from the top there. So that's immediately getting 26mm. Marvellous effort. I'll put you on stop motion for this bit. Your humbucker cavities. Happy, happy, happy. All right. So we've got all the binding back on. I didn't like the first lot, so I've redone it. We've blacked it, sanded it, so what you've got there is the flame coming through, and now it's time to put on the colour. So nice cloth, nice blue. Let's get that colour on. Okay, I've been doing all the inlays. I thought I'd just show you on the last one how I do it. So we have these beautiful little, not sure if you can see them, little tiny mother of pearl inlays. I'm putting them down the centre line. Obviously for your 12 marker there's 2 there. So I'm going to hold it in position with the teeniest dab of glue on the centre line, just to hold it in position. And then I can move it in. Make sure it's on the spot. And that's going to hold it there for me whilst I get a standing knife blade, not that one. That corner's fine. And I want to score just down at the edges. Very, very lightly. Just to break through the first fibres of the board. I've got slightly deeper afterwards. But if you go too deep to start with, it'll just follow the grain and not where you want it. Once I've got that down, then I'm safe to take it off. As I say, that tiniest little dab of glue, you can just bring it off. That way you don't damage them. What I'm left with is a tiny little diamond in here. And now I can deepen those furrows. So you get a nice clean edge. Cool. Now we're going to route out the middle to depth. Gives me the middle portion all nice. So all I need to do now is just take out the corners very carefully with a chisel. And there we've got a nice edge. Let's see if that fits now. A little bit too snug at the moment. Needs that edge just opening up slightly. One. Marvellous. Fits like a glove. A little bit of super glue just to flood the cavity. And then she goes. There is your board. Okay, so today is fret day. I've got a couple more to do, so I thought I'd better show you a quick video before I finish them all off. Here's all the frets installed so far, diff a couple down the bottom, and I'm just meeting them in the middle at the moment. So the way that I fret is pretty traditional. The fret material I'm using, here's a straight bit, that's a Hosco nickel silver medium jumbo wire, which is about as box standard as you can get. I think it's equivalent to a 6105 Dunlop fret, sort of thing you'd find on a Strat or a Les Paul, fairly vintage model. Perhaps a little bit wider. They tend to use a medium rather than a medium jumbo, but these feel ridiculously comfortable under the fingers. It's the same ones that were in the Blues Master you played. What you then do is bend them. I've got a little wire bender, and you just feed it through and a straight wire becomes a curvy one, and then that matches the radius of the fretboard slightly more, so that when it comes flat, the little teeth on the tang, this bit, you can see the actual frets here, and then there's a tang, so that goes into the slot, and you find that these little teeth then bite in and bite into the wood. So you don't want them to go absolutely straight in because they can come straight out, so you want them to bend and then curve out and cut into the wood and stay there nice and solid. Then you get a really stable fretboard. So what I need to do is cut this to the width of, I'll do this one because it's in view, cut this to the width that you need. Now this is a bound fretboard. I've got the white, black, white binding on. So in order to make sure, because that's got no fret slot in it, you just need to take off the edge of the tang to overhang like so, and then you can see there's a little nibble out of it. That allows me to measure up. Now this particular board, I'm going to make sure that it comes to the edge of the black, so you've got a tiny little white overhang, that way when you're playing it's not going to cut into your fingers. So I measure that to the width, remove the other side tang, and then you've got a measured, and that just is going to go into there. So what I now need to do is tidy up the ends, round them off, and then I'll show you it hammering in. Right, so this is my little vise. I've just, where's my fret gone? I've just bloody lost it. Just lost my fret, there we go. So in order to make sure that this fits really snugly and really comfortable into the fretboard, just a little bit of filing action required. First thing to do is take off the remnant of that little bit of a tang with a file. And that way you know that the top of it is sitting lovely and flat. Excellent. Now, an awful lot of fret dressing that goes on is to round off the edges of the fret so they're not sharp where you've just cut them. It's, for me, I find it twofold. A, easier to do off the fretboard. A lot of people like to install it and then do it. I'm not a big fan. I can't honestly think that any unnecessary contact with the fretboard, if I can do it here, is of use for me. If I'm starting to stand there with the fretboard and saw into it and do things on here, I've got more chance of making tool marks on the fretboard, and this is easily avoidable. So It's whatever floats your boat, I suppose, but I just quite happy to do it on here. Perhaps I'm just clumsy. Okay, so this fret's just about to go into its little slot. I'm just going to recheck, make sure it's on the money. We're absolutely fine, black to black there. So let's just hammer it in. So always hammer from middle to outer. Like I said, you want those teeth to bite. And once you know it's starting to hone into position, which it virtually is already, then you just start to give it a little bit more oomph. And really hammer it home. You can see I've got a wee plastic handled hammer. We're not going to damage any frets, so as much as it may look a little forceful, it's necessary. And then you know that it's lovely and flat, lovely and flush, spot on position. Another one's good. Okay, so next thing I've got to do is crown the frets. So what I've already done is filed them flat. Essentially that is using a flat tool with a flat board to go and make them all the same height. So that's already done. So the tops of those frets are now flat, so they go. What I need to do is make sure that they're now rounded. So you can see that they're currently black. I've just used a marker to put some marks on there, which gives me a flat black fat line. And what I'm going to do is use my little crowning file, I'll just show you on this one, to take the edges to make them into sort of triangles. And I can see that line beginning to thin. So each one gets a little edge off on each side to make that line nice and thin. So the top of that fret is now skinnier. That takes off the bulk of the material. So now instead of a flat line that's big and fat, I can see exactly where the centre of each of those frets is going to be. And it becomes a skinny line. Each one then now gets rounded with that same curved file that I used, which makes it into a dome, so that there's just the tiniest little bit of marker left. And that way each file goes back to being the same height and round. And I can just re-round off each of those edges, like you saw me doing when I fretted it. Rinse and repeat 22 times, and then it's polishing. Neck is now carved, all happy day on that one. I've just kept the end there so as when it finally glues on, you'll be able to really feel the difference. Just put on the first sealer coats, looking shiny. A little bit on the rough side at the moment because I've got to knock all that back before the finishing coats go on, but looking nice. So I just thought I'd show you this bit. Just clamping up the neck now, everything's going very smoothly so far, and we really don't want to screw that smoothness up by making sure that the neck's in the wrong position. So what I'm going to do is take all the clamps off for a minute. These have been on for about 5 minutes, which is just the right time to make sure that things are still malleable without being set. So I make sure that the centre line is going down the centre of the body. And I just check to make sure that we're in the right position. That, my friend, is a very straight neck. Now, happy with that, we add the clamps, which obviously block the laser view. And there is one neck centered in position. Happy, love this job. So here's your guitar in its finished glory. Now I just need to assemble it. Hello mate, it's all done, it's all wired, it's all shiny, it's all nice. I just thought I'd give you a few tone tests. So we've got the basic setup of the guitar, 5-way selector switch, top position, second position, these two, third position, just bridge, fourth position, piezo and bridge, fifth position, just piezo. Master volume, master tone. Let's see what it sounds like. So, just neck pickup. And as you turn off the volume, it rolls down the gain too. Fixing that. I put it through an acoustic amp. Good sounds, but then you can start to play rock with it.